Hey everyone, how's it going? Shuffles back here with another video, and it is tier list time. So this is attempt number 4 recording this tier list. I've had some issues trying to record it, but hopefully it works this time. So we're gonna change the format a little bit. Last month we introduced the green borders and the red borders and stuff, kind of letting you know who moved up and who moved down. What I'm gonna try and do now that I've touched on most of the others is I'm gonna touch on them a little less, and the ones in the borders I'm gonna talk about a little more. Try and keep the video a little bit shorter. And you'll be able to see everybody right off the bat, so hopefully this makes this easier. So let's jump right into it. Starting off, we have our first Triple S unit of the day with Seaside Bellina. Last month I mentioned that I thought maybe she would take Dizzy's spot as the water Triple S unit, and sure enough, it's proven to be true. She's kind of taken over the meta. She's used absolutely everywhere right now, and definitely deserves her Triple S status. As for Dizzy, she's still used a ton. Um, but we could only have one triple S there. Is I'm only going to have 5 triple S units, 15 double S units, and 15 single S units. So they have to fit into those brackets, which means that we can only have 5 in triple S, so Dizzy moves down to double S. Taking a look at the other double S units, we have Tywin, Crow, and Sigrid, all of which do something that really nobody else does. Um, Tywin with the AoE defense break, Crow with the nuke potential, also fantastic in Wyvern, and Sigrid with the crazy single target damage, the best single target damage out of all the water damage dealers. Um, Also, I know a lot of people would argue Luna, and Luna can do big damage and has a defense break, but first of all, she's not consistent, and with her skill 1 damage, it's kind of all over the place. One minute it'll do huge damage, and the next minute it won't do any. But also, Sigrid, if you decide to use her in Guild War, she's way, way, way better than Luna because not only does she do the big damage, but she can also burn into. So if you go Oxalot Sigrid and you burn into Sigrid skill 2, Sigrid can actually take 3 turns. So she can potentially wipe the entire team, minimum killing 2 people. Crazy strong. I actually built her on my main account after using her on my baby account just because she was so strong, and I missed having that option in Guild War. So moving on to single S, we have Luna, who we just talked about. Luna and Chloe actually are 2 fantastic Wyvern nukers, 2 of the best in the game. Either of them will work. They're both kind of on par now. They both, now that Chloe has her exclusive equipment, they both do very good damage. Luna slightly more than Chloe, but Chloe has the nail, so that kind of evens it out over the course of a Wyvern run. If you're using in PvP, Chloe and Luna both you can burn into their skill 3. Chloe's damage isn't as big, but again, her burn multiplier is one of the strongest in the game. So if you're burning into her skill 3, not only does she have the stun instead of the defense break, but she also has huge damage that way as well. And Lulu, I think Lulu is still one of the most underrated champs in the game. She only moved down because Bellina's kind of taken over that role for water units. I still think Lulu is amazing. I have her on my baby account and I plan on building her up, even though I have Bellina there. But I think she's going to be good. A mage with a defense break, a defense buff, and a shield. I'm looking forward to trying her out, especially in places like Raid and in Abyss. And finally, we have Dizzy, or sorry, DN. DN was a limited unit for those of you who don't know. She's an attack buff, the only crit resist buff in the game. That being said, that's changing in 2 days as we're getting Dark Crozet, who has the crit resist buff. But still one of the top units in the game. I just think you don't see her as much anymore just because she's old now and people kind of forgot about how good she is, or at least got bored of using her. Moving on to A rank, we have Kize, Says, and Yuna, all of whom are still very strong and very usable. There's just better options out there now. And finally, Xeno. Xeno kind of speaks for himself, being the only unit in C rank on the entire list. Moving on to Fire, we have Ken and Cecilia. So Fire Ken definitely would be higher on this list. He could, well, not definitely, but he could be argued to be higher on the list if he wasn't Fire. The fact that he's fire is a little bit debilitating. He's still used a lot in Guild War, especially higher end Guild War. Um, very, very strong. Also can potentially be used in other places, but mainly Guild War. Also, Cecilia, another one you can use her on arena defense. I know I had her on my defense forever, and also fantastic for Guild War as well. But again, she's fire, and it kind of hurts all fire units since there's really nowhere to use them other than Guild War. Um, Moving down, we have a very crowded S tier. We have Tenebria, who I moved up because she's getting a huge buff. The reason I moved her up is because she was already really, really good. I would have probably left her in A rank just because there's not really a place for her, but now she has a sleep and an AoE slow, and that puts her on par with Ball, who also recently got a buff. So both crazy strong double AoE mages. Unfortunately, again, being fire, it kind of limits their usefulness. All of these fire units are good for Golem. So I should say, being good for Golem isn't really going to move you up this list because pretty much everybody's good for Golem. You can use almost any fire unit, any nature unit, any light unit, or any dark unit for Golem. So being good in Golem isn't going to be like, oh, you should be triple S because you're good in Golem. Not only that, but Golem is probably the least important of the dungeons. So something like Wyvern is going to be favored a lot more in terms of moving up the tier list. So moving on, we have a couple of really hard-hitting damage dealers in Kayron and Ravi. Kayron more of the nuker type, but he does have that self-sustain with the Undying. And Ravi, really tanky bruiser. I moved Ravi up the list because Ravi has finally been getting some love, and people are realizing how incredibly strong she is. And now we're starting to build regular Ravi for Guild War. And so she's getting a little bit of love. She'll never, because she's fire, she'll never move any higher than S tier. But I'm happy to see that she's getting some play. And yeah, so she moves up to S tier. And then you see Tamarin there. Tamarin is hovering in between S and double S, along with Specimen Says, because I had 14 units in each class, and I had to put one in double S and one in single S. And I can't quite justify moving Tamarin up, mainly because she really needs Izaria in order to be useful. She's still the best raid healer in the game and abyss healer in the game, but beyond that, she's just good. But yeah, so I'll let you guys in the comment section down below kind of weigh in on who you think of those two units should move up to double S and who should move down to single S. We will touch on Sez once we get over to the light dark units. Moving on to the A tier, we have Sirmia. I actually moved Sirmia up from B to A purely because her buff that's coming is going to be really good. Or sorry, she's not getting buffed, but it feels like she's getting buffed because we're getting World Boss. World Boss is something that where she's going to really excel, that peak damage. So I'm looking forward to using her there. Also, Lidica and Era, both of whom, because of recent buffs to other units, Lidica with Wanderer Silk and Era with Tenebria and Ball, they both kind of suffer because not only are they fire, but they also now aren't the best at what they do anymore. So, um, yeah, they are in A tier. They're still very good units and very useful, especially in PvE, but there are better options out there if you happen to have them. And then B tier, we have Haste, Charlotte, and Saul, all three of which can do big damage. They could potentially be good in RTA, and they can be good in Golem, but really nowhere else. That's pretty much where you draw the line. You can force use them in Guild War in niche situations, but I wouldn't recommend building them just for that, because again, you probably have something that could do the job, only better. Moving on to the wind units, we have at the top Izaria, who is potentially forever triple S. Because she's such an enabler, she's the best support in the game. Every time somebody comes in that has a really good skill, it makes her even better. And she moves up the list even further. Just because because you can't run two of the same units on a team, being able to run Izaria and then say, for example, double Lilibet or double revive or double heal or transform Tamarin, whatever you want to do, she can do it. So she almost is like every other unit in the game because she can let that unit use their skills twice. And then we have Basar. Basar 2 months ago was A rank. Then he got his big buff. We moved him up all the way to double S last month, and now I moved him up to triple S because he is the only healer in the game that you can burn into, or sorry, the only strip in the game that you can burn into him and make him irresistible. So that irresistible strip has to move him up to triple S now, especially now that everybody's built him and using him. I wish he's the only unit across my 2 accounts that I haven't summoned, and I really, really want him. It would add a whole new dimension to my options on arena offense. Um, so yeah, Basar is our new triple S unit. Moving on to double S, we have Violet, Destina, and Charles. Violet's still top tier for Guild War. Um, because he's so tanky and he always has that chance for evasion, he's got to still be ranked high. Charles as well. He just got his exclusive equipment, and that actually he's supposed to have a green border on him as well because he was S rank last month. I moved him up because of the exclusive equipment. It doesn't seem like much, but it's made enough of a difference that he can revenge kill your nuker in Guild War, in Arena, and suddenly people are using him a lot more in Arena than they used to be because of that, and because of that we moved him up to double S. Then we have Destina. Destina is potentially the best pure healer in the game. She's got the cleanse, she's got 3 heals, she's got an attack bar boost. Crazy, crazy strong. I know some people just don't like her because she's an older unit, but she's still very, very strong. Moving on to S tier, we have a bunch of single target nukers and then a bunch of AoE nukes, kind of crowded here for the Wind S tier units. But Baiken, Yufine, and Lilibet are all crazy strong options for Guild War. Also can use them in Banshee and at least a couple of them in A11 as well. Lilibet still the best option for anti-Vildred. She's the only unit in the game, until, at least until Wednesday, that has Extinction. But we will talk about Says later. I still really like her though. I even against units other than Lilibet, or against units other than Vildred, I still use her. Even if I had Says, I would probably still use her for Vildred because I can run Oath Key on her and then I could run something else on Says. Also with Yufine with the 2 strips and the self buff and the nuke and the stun, and then Baiken with all her extra turns and the good base speed, all very strong units. Vivian is very unique in that she has her 3-turn immunity and 3-turn attack buff. Belena, of course, with the probably one of the best PvE units in the game. Unfortunately, doesn't really have a place in PvP, so she doesn't really move too much higher on the list than this. And Vildred, of course, not the best AoE nuke in the game, but an incredible farmer if you need a farmer. And also with the speed imprint, I think the speed imprint alone has to put him at S rank. But in terms of being higher than that, he's not the hardest hitting nuke in the game compared to, say, BBK, Judge Kize, Celestial Mercedes, those types. So he can't quite move up into that double S tier. And finally, wrapping up the Earth units, we have Ludwig. A very hard hitting damage dealer, actually, even harder than Vildred, except he's only be able to be used in niche situations. So I know a lot of YouTubers use him, but because he can't be used in every situation, it just doesn't make sense to put your best nuker gear on him. So you'd end up having second tier gear on him, and unless you're just doing it for fun, it's really not worth it. Moving on to the light dark units, we will start with the triple S. We got Ruel and Fallen Cecilia. Obviously, 2 of the top units in the game, 2 of the most used units in the game in both Guild War and Arena. Um, I don't think there's going to be any arguments there. Moving on to double S, we have Maid Chloe, who, if you didn't know, is actually in the Mystic rotation next month. This week, starting Wednesday. So keep an eye out for that. I will actually most likely be doing a summon session on Wednesday on stream once the patch is live. Actually, maybe potentially before the patch. We'll see. But yeah, so stay tuned for that. She is coming up, and we'll see her all over the place, even more so than we already do. Uh, poor Judge Kize, I moved her down from Triple S, not because she's worse. She's still probably a Triple S unit, but we needed to move somebody down in order to make room for Basar, and she was the casualty. Um, she's still good in a lot of content, not just Arena and Guild War. She's top tier for Guild War and Arena, but the best AoE nuke in the game. But beyond that, she can also be used in A11. She can be used in Raid. She could potentially be used. Well, she can be used in Lab, obviously. She can potentially be used in Hall of Trials and stuff like that as well. But I think in terms of comparing her to a unit that is irresistible, we had to move her down one. So over to the Dark Triple S units, we have 3 units who absolutely need to be countered if you're going to go into a fight against them, particularly Vildred and Ken, both of which are going to be an absolute nightmare for RTA, already really, really strong for both Arena and Guild War. Offense and defense actually as well, and there are units that you need to bring counters into, so you can't just bring one of your normal teams, you need to counter them specifically. Also, Robbie, now the best bruiser in the game by far. I'm so happy that people are finally showing her some love after they've skilled her up. She just hits so hard. She can one-shot most units in the game, and I've actually had her revenge one-shot with her skill 1, my Judge Kize, on defense, which was really scary. And yeah, she's incredible now. On top of all that, she self heals, she revives, she does it all. She can solo almost anything. If you build her up and skill her up, and put her into your Guild War offense, you may never lose another Guild War offense. Moving on to S tier, you can see we have Specimen Says, who we've already mentioned, is getting that big buff upcoming this Wednesday. So he's getting Extinction. That combined with the fact that he can be on RNL and proc an extra turn, and his skill doesn't go on cooldown when he kills somebody, he is going to be one of, if not the best Guild War offense units in the game. I'm still not sure how people are going to use him in Arena. It'll be interesting to see, maybe with like a Tamiz area combo or something. With a stun, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens with that. But very, very, very good. He might actually be a bit of a boost to ML Era, who's up next on the list. These 4 are kind of the misfits of the game right now. They all are pretty strong at what they do, but they're not necessarily the best option in any situation. So you've got Era, who's got the only AoE stun in the game. Again, could be very good for RTA. ML Ball, who was very good, then got nerfed and is now almost nowhere. The only reason I think he's still maybe even better than his ranking shows is that a lot of people don't have him anymore. So he's probably the most rare unit in the game now, since most people that had him traded him in. And then Spectre Tenebria, who she's a decent single target damage dealer, but her damage isn't as high as some other units. The thing that makes her interesting is that you can't focus her. So she'll be, again, a nightmare for RTA. Once RTA comes out, I see her moving up almost instantaneously because she's another one like Vildred and Ken that is going to have to be countered. And then Corvus, who is Old Faithful. He can get the job done against anything, but he's definitely not the best option against anything. Um, so if you're not worried about doing like a slow clear, then he's your man because he will eventually get the job done. And finally, we have Basar. Poor Basar. He's down here beside all the question marks. I debated putting him on the list this month, even though because he's been out for a while. But kind of like Robbie, she was out for a while, and people really didn't like her until they got her skilled up. So I'm gonna wait and see. I know a lot of people are using him with a lot of success on arena defense. So I'm gonna wait another month before we actually debut him on the list because I think if I put him on now, I'd probably put him a little too low. Um, so we'll wait and see what happens. But that is going to be it for the October tier list, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to comment down below what you think of the tier list, who you would move up, who you would move down. Keep in mind that it wouldn't be a tier list if you agreed with absolutely everything. I don't think I've ever agreed with a tier list 100%. So I'm curious to hear your guys' opinions. Just make sure you keep it clean. Last month there were some people who we had to delete their comments because they were being very rude. So try and keep it clean and productive. Keep in mind that your comments will be be read by the rest of the community. So um, because of that, it would be nice if you were helpful instead of toxic. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you all next time. Bye for now.